Welcome back to No Idea, the podcast where you have no idea what we're going to talk about, and we have no idea how it's going to go. I'm your host, Jenny. I am so happy you guys have tuned in today. I have a dear friend of mine. Her name is Gabrielle. Should I say her last name because it's so cute?
Yes.
Okay, no, you say it. Go ahead. Say it, first and last name.
Gabrielle Ezell.
It rhymes. Her name freaking rhymes. Wow. It is an honor to have you here. I'm so excited. We literally discussed this topic at the dinner table one night. We were like, we have to record this.
Yes.
Because it's just so good. So, Gabrielle, go ahead. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I am Gabrielle, and yes, my name does rhyme. I am studying intercultural ministry studies, and I'm also leaving the country in a few days. 3 days and a few hours. I'm excited. I'll be going to West Africa. And I'm incredibly passionate for disabilities ministry and orphan care ministry. I'm excited to see what the Lord is going to do with that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So excited for you. That's why getting her on this podcast was urgent, because I was like, I want to do it before you leave.
Yeah.
You're leaving and we got to do it before. I do have access to remote podcasts, so I guess we could have done it, but, Wi-Fi might be spotty.
It would be a little sketchy.
We wanted to do it before you leave. Today we are talking about, drum roll please, we're talking about toxic people and toxic relationships.
Woo.
Dun, dun, dun. So, I was just talking to Gabrielle maybe a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think like 2 weeks ago. And I was like, you could be on the podcast. You can talk whatever about, you're passionate about. And she's like, well, loving difficult people, you said.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just started talking, and I was like, you need to share this, because it honestly convicted me. I was like, wow, am I really loving people? But why are you so passionate about this topic specifically?
Yeah, I'm passionate about this topic because for one, I've definitely dealt with what I at one point considered a toxic person in my life as a recovering people pleaser. And I feel like when you are a people pleaser, you can draw out those people. I mean, there's a lot of studies on because what some people may define as a toxic person as someone who is kind of one-sided, and it can be very one-sided when you're kind of letting go of what maybe you truly think in order to please that other person. So yeah, in high school, I just realized I had struggled a lot with just toxic relationships, and I realized the easiest thing to do was just isolate myself and cut them out. And I thought that was the way of self-care, and that was the way that we were taught to do it in our society. Mm-hmm. That was what we deserved. I just realized that, is this something that society is teaching us, or is this something that is necessarily biblical? We should be asking ourselves, how can we deal with quote-unquote toxic people in a way that shines a light that points to Christ?
Yeah. That's so good. And we say quote-unquote toxic people.
Yeah.
I love your opinion about what a toxic person is.
Yeah, because it has changed a lot over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Because now, as I've grown up in the Lord, and I'm still only 20, so I still have a lot of growing to do, but currently I really don't think I believe in quote-unquote toxic people. I think that the toxic is sin, and we all have it. And I think that people can seem toxic because they are sinful at their very nature, and we all falter. Mm-hmm. And we are desperately in need of Jesus, and that's just like the people that we have a hard time with.
Right.
So
yeah.
I think that's where it all comes down to.
So you would say that none of us are truly toxic people, but we do have sinful qualities.
Yes.
And there are such things as toxic relationships.
Yes.
So how would you define toxic relationships?
Well, that's definitely a complicated question, but it can be answered. I think that there are many signs to identify a toxic relationship, and I think that some of the signs can be it can be a lack of trust, or it can be frequent lying, controlling behaviors. It can be when it is one-sided, or when you see that lack of support. But I think of the verses in 1 Corinthians 13, or in chapter 13, verses 4 through 13, when it talks about what love truly is. And I feel like when you go through that and you see, oh, there's a pattern here where your friend, your coworker, your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend and you see that, oh, there's a pattern here, this isn't meeting up, you need to go into that. And that's where, because I see that we think it can be easy to think we need to like cut toxic people out, and I'm not saying we shouldn't have boundaries, but I mean, I just think it's humbling when you think about the fact that God could have cut us off, but he showed us grace, and I think we can continue to show that grace to those who are difficult as well.
Yeah, in our culture, we're just so quick to just cut people out and be like, no, this is healthy for me. When they were like not kind to you a few times, you're like, okay, well, that means that they cannot be in my life at all. But is that really healthy for either of us? I mean, if we all fall short of the glory of God, then shouldn't we give grace to those who are also falling short of the glory of God?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's a good definition. I like that. It's like if they continually follow this pattern.
It's failing to love.
Yes, of basically not loving you well. Okay, toxic relationship. So, how do you think that cancel culture has influenced this type of thinking in our society?
Well, I think it's made it more acceptable to just go the easy route and cut people off. I think of like a tree, and I think of you're trying to just cut off this tree by taking off a branch instead of getting to the root of the problem. And with cancel culture, it's not, I don't believe it's a way of showing love to the person, but it's not showing grace because you're not giving them room to grow. You're taking one situation and you're defining them by that situation. You're defining them by that mistake. And we've all made mistakes. We've all faltered, and we've all fallen short. But we have an advocate with the Father, and we can go to him in repentance. And that's not a relationship.
Right.
And cancel culture is definitely a more broader picture. I mean, that can go way farther than just a relationship. I mean, it can even be via social media, just blocking someone. And that's something I've been guilty of in the past, especially in high school. The second I saw something, I was just, okay, I'm blocking them, I'm done. And the Lord's definitely really convicted me of that, because it's just an easy way out instead of just like showing that person grace and even using it as an opportunity to shine a light that points to Christ and speak truth into that situation, because confrontation is something I think we like to avoid when it comes to cancel culture. We just want to cancel them out instead of like shining truth, or we want to just confront them so much we're just like, no, you're wrong, and then we just they don't even have a word in.
Right.
But I think with cancel culture, it's just, it makes it way more acceptable, and it's even a community cancel to where like if you don't cancel with, then you are canceled as well. And I see that in communities of friends where it's like, oh, we don't talk to her anymore, we don't talk to him anymore.
Oh.
And I see that, and it's not even sometimes it's subconscious too, like you don't even really, it's just kind of like a community, like, okay, we know we don't do that. And it's sad.
No one says it, but we all know
but we all know it. And it's just and I see that infiltrating the church.
Yeah.
And in college, and just it's sad. And I just think that we can do better, and I just think it's really humbling to know that, like, because people say, you know, oh, if I cut them off, they handed me the scissors. And I used to say that with such a heart for it, like, oh yeah, you know, self-care.
Power to me.
Hashtag self-care. And now I'm just like, no, how many times have I handed Jesus Christ those scissors? And he has chosen to love me and fight for me and pursue me and forgive me over and over again. And so, yeah, I do think the concept of cancel culture has influenced the concept of toxic people, and I think it's almost redefined it, because really toxic just means poison. And so I think poison, I mean, it's almost, I feel like all of these biblical terms have been redefined in our society, and I think that's what's poisonous.
Yeah.
That's poisoning, that's what's being poisoned right now.
The truth. Yeah. Yeah. It is just so much easier in our minds, like, okay, this person has offended me in some way. Well, instead of going to them and telling them, hey, I'm not understanding, could you re-explain this to me? Did you mean to do this? Like taking an understanding side, or just saying like, this offended me. What's going on? Are you okay? Did you mean to do that? You know, instead of doing that to our brothers and sisters, we say, okay, well, I just don't want to deal with it. I just want to shut it down. And so you don't text them for a week or so, and they're like, hey, are you okay? And you say, Yeah, fine. Why? That's not loving.
No.
There's resentment growing there.
Right.
Yeah. So if there are no such thing as toxic people, what do we do with toxic relationships in our lives?
Yeah, well, boundaries are definitely important, and I think that's where we really need to go to the Lord in prayer, and ask Him for our heart behind it, and just so we get to the goal of why we need those boundaries. Because for one, we need forgiveness. Forgiveness is so important in order to make those boundaries, because really we just want to establish peace. And so we need that in our heart first thing. And we also, our mental health is important. And so we need to establish those boundaries. And so we need to ask, when we set those boundaries with this person, do they respect those boundaries? Or do we need to distance to an extent with that person, you know? So like, for example, like my bio father is no longer in my life. He chose to leave when I was really young. And now if he decided someday that he'd want to come back in, let's say he found the Lord and he wanted to have coffee or something, perhaps I could pray about it and reevaluate it and see like, hey, would this be safe? Because the thing is, our safety is important. God cares about you. He cares about your safety. He loves you. He doesn't want you, that, you know what I mean? Like, it's different, you know? But I think that I would be willing to meet with him per se and have coffee, but I don't know if I would say you can just become my father, because I'm adopted and I have a dad.
Right.
And there is consequences to actions. I'm not saying there is, and I think that's very biblical to say there's consequences for our actions, of course. But I think that boundaries are very important, because I have forgiven my bio father. I have no like hatred. I definitely have love for him, but I don't think accepting him back into my life in the same way he was in my life is necessarily healthy or safe.
Right.
But I think that's different from cutting him out, you know?
Yeah.
Because that was partly his choice as well. Because I know that so many go through like, okay, how do I do with this toxic family member? Because, you know, there are safety situations where you do have to abandon ship and leave for a little bit. And I think that is okay. And that's where you really need to go to the Lord and use discernment and pray into that and study the scriptures. Yeah.
Right. I feel like if we continue to cut people out as soon as they disappoint us, as soon as they hurt us in some kind of way, instead of trying to fix and apologize and forgive, it's like we're like, oh, I'm protecting myself, but like in the end, you've just built all these walls around yourself, and you just feel lonely. You just feel isolated.
And then you're just coping with isolation. And that's hard too. And that's something I went through a lot in high school. And then that can make you get into more toxic relationships too. And there's so many. There is a way. I guess there is a lot of holes to sink into if it's done wrong when it comes to toxic relationships. That's why we really need to go to the Lord in prayer and surrender it to him, and ask for his wisdom and ask for his grace and mercy towards these people, because it is very difficult to love people when they interrupt our peace and they cross boundaries. So yeah, I think it's very important to just go to God and lean on him as our strength in those moments.
Yes. Absolutely. And where does forgiveness fit into our boundaries exactly?
Well, yeah, like I said, I think it's just really important to just remember the goal behind why you set those boundaries, and just know like there's a difference, I think, between trust and forgiveness, and just like saying, hey, I know maybe I don't trust this man to necessarily be my dad because he abandoned that, but like I forgive him. In fact, I pray for him. And that helps me to forgive too. I notice like a big thing, I've had a lot of brothers and sisters in Christ give me this advice, and they've told me like one way to love your brothers and sisters, or even unbelievers when they've wronged you, is to pray for them, because sometimes that helps change resentment into love. And so I started praying for my bio father, and that really helped me. And I realized that I no longer had bitterness toward him, even for the hurt that he caused my family and myself. But I still don't necessarily trust him.
Right.
And I think that that's wise. I don't think we have to blindly trust people that have wronged us. But I think that I think that's different from forgiveness, because So I think boundaries are definitely, and we definitely need to set those boundaries. And for me personally in that situation, I couldn't set those boundaries vocally because he's no longer in my life. But like, let's say it's a coworker or a spouse or whoever. I mean, you may have to set those boundaries verbally and have those meetings, and depending on the situation.
Right. Yeah. That makes total sense. Yes. When we forgive someone, it's not saying I restore all the trust that I once had with them, but it's saying like I am stepping away from their throat and God is their judge. I am not their judge.
Yes.
So it's pardoning their offense, their debt. It's not saying like, oh, that didn't hurt. That didn't hurt at all.
No.
No. Yeah,
it's
that's
not
really,
denying
really good.
your emotions.
Right. Right.
For sure.
Yes. When we talked about this, I was like, wow, I'm convicted. And I was like, you need to share because I bet this will help a lot of other people too. So do you have any final encouragements for anyone listening, anyone who's currently going through this in some capacity in their life?
When the Lord first convicted me about like the concept of toxic people, it really offended me because at the time I had someone in my life who I considered toxic. And I would just go to the Lord in prayer and just surrender it to him and just ask the Lord to love that person as he loves that person. And don't give up if it doesn't work immediately. Keep pursuing it because God's timing is so perfect. I think about when I'm 20 years old now and I didn't grow up in a Christian home. And I've been praying and praying and praying for God to save my parents. And just last year, he answered that prayer. And I just think about like his timing. I would have loved it if I grew up like in a Christian home, you know? But his timing was so perfect. It was right before the pandemic. And I saw that hope in my family. And it was just like, it was exactly what we all needed. And that joy in the house. It was just God's timing. It's always perfect. And he is with you in every part. And I think of how in the Psalm, I think it's 139, where it talks about when David's praying and he's asking the Lord to, where he's saying, I know that you've searched my heart, like search my heart and know every, you know, and then he says it again. And it's like he knows that he's already searched his heart, but he wants to be in the process with him. And it's like God will be in that process with you if you surrender it to him. But yeah. It's hard to love people when they're being difficult and when they want to poison your peace, and just know and remember that like I find it incredibly humbling to me knowing that I have totally handed Jesus those scissors and he could have totally cut each of us off so many times, and he had chosen to love us so much that he died for us and he took on our sins on that cross. And he conquered them. And so I just remember that, and I find that such a blessing that every time we falter that we can go to him in prayer and that we have that divine, intimate relationship with him. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. So good. So wise. Thank you for sharing your wisdom here. I hope this helped anyone who's thinking about someone in your mind right now. They're like, they're talking to me. I think they're talking to me. And you might know the situation, but if you don't have anyone coming to mind automatically, keep praying about it. Search your heart. Ask the Lord to search your heart, just like David did. And yeah, he will answer your prayers, and he will answer the prayers that are in his will. And what is more in his will than loving others? So,
amen.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing, Gabrielle.
Thank you for letting me come
You're welcome.
Visit your channel or podcast.
I'm so excited you get to fly off in a few days, but thank you for taking the time to share.
For shizzles.
Okay. For shizzles. I just want to say that on Gabrielle's 20th birthday,
no.
I asked her, do you feel any different now that you're 20? And she goes, I feel a little bloated.
We ate a lot of food that day.
Ooh, okay. This is Jenny and Gabrielle signing off. No Idea Podcast. See you around.
Bye.